In Skyrim, there are plenty of horses that are scattered all across the world, but only one emerges from a pool of darkness with glowing red eyes, charges directly into combat, and can seemingly return from the dead. Shadowmere isn't just one of the most recognizable mounts in Skyrim, they're one of the strangest creatures associated with the Dark Brotherhood, with the history stretching back hundreds of years before the Dragonborn ever arrives in Skyrim. And despite appearing in multiple Elder Scrolls games, there's still one surprisingly difficult question to answer. What exactly is Shadowmere? To understand that, we first need to look at how the Dragonborn actually gets Shadowmere. Shadowmere is obtained during the Dark Brotherhood questline, specifically during the Cure for Madness quest. Cicero, the eccentric keeper responsible for transporting and protecting the Night Mother, attacked members of the Brotherhood and fled the sanctuary. Astrid sends the Dragonborn after him, but before leaving, she offers some additional assistance. A horse. Except this isn't going to be the kind of horse that you're gonna find waiting outside of Whiterun stables. Astrid tells the Dragonborn to use Shadowmere, describing the horse as quote-unquote one of the Dark Brotherhood's own. Head outside of the sanctuary and approach the nearby pool, and you'll witness one of the most memorable introductions for any mount in Skyrim. Dark smoke starts rising from the surface, and suddenly a black horse with glowing red eyes emerges directly from the pool. This is Shadowmere, and immediately it's obvious that there's something different about this horse. And once you start looking into Shadowmere's history, that becomes even more interesting, because the Dragonborn isn't the first Elder Scrolls protagonist to ride Shadowmere. To find Shadowmere's previous appearance, you have to travel roughly 200 years into the past to the events surrounding the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. And once again, Shadowmere was connected to the Dark Brotherhood. During Oblivion's Dark Brotherhood questline, Shadowmere belonged to Lucian Lachance, a speaker of the Black Hand and one of the most important assassins within the organization. And even back then, Shadowmere wasn't an ordinary horse. But this is where things start getting strange, because approximately 2 centuries separate Oblivion and Skyrim, yet Shadowmere appears in both. Later in Skyrim's Dark Brotherhood questline, the Dragonborn can obtain the ability to summon the spectral form of Lucian Lachance. Normally, Lucian provides commentary on different locations, quests, and events, but bring Lucian near Shadowmere and something very interesting can happen. Lucian actually recognizes Shadowmere. He can greet Shadowmere as an old friend, and that tiny interaction has enormous implications. Lucian died roughly 2 centuries before the events of Skyrim. Yet when summoned by the Dragonborn, Lucian apparently recognizes the horse standing in front of him, which means Shadowmere may have existed for at least hundreds of years. But how is Shadowmere still alive? Unfortunately, Skyrim never gives us a definitive explanation. Shadowmere is clearly supernatural in some way, but the exact nature of that supernatural existence is left intentionally unclear. Shadowmere's actual gameplay statistics are ridiculous compared to most horses in Skyrim. They're level 50 and possess an enormous health pool compared to ordinary horses, but their health alone isn't their most important feature. It's the regeneration. Shadowmere regenerates health incredibly quickly. That means an enemy doesn't have to just deal enough damage to defeat Shadowmere, they have to deal enough damage quickly enough to overcome the regeneration. Against weaker enemies, that's extremely difficult. In fact, players discovered another use for that enormous health pool, which is training their skills. If you need a durable target for leveling combat-related skills, Shadowmere can function as one. Attack Shadowmere, allow the health to regenerate, attack again, and continue repeating the process. So one of the most mysterious creatures associated with the Dark Brotherhood can effectively become a living training dummy for the Dragonborn. Despite the survivability of Shadowmere being extremely impressive, it's still important to remember that Shadowmere is not completely invincible in Skyrim. The massive health pool and extreme regeneration can make Shadowmere feel immortal during ordinary gameplay, but enough concentrated damage can still kill Shadowmere. Take Shadowmere off a large enough cliff, and even super supernatural durability has its limits. But death doesn't necessarily mean Shadowmere is gone forever. After roughly 10 in-game days, Shadowmere can respawn. Usually this occurs around the location where Shadowmere died, and under certain circumstances involving water, Shadowmere can instead return around the mysterious black pool outside of the Falkreath Dark Brotherhood sanctuary. But all of this raises another important question. With all of the different mounts available in modern versions of Skyrim, is Shadowmere actually the best one? When Skyrim originally released, Shadowmere was easily one of the most notable mounts available, but Skyrim has changed substantially since 2011. Dawnguard added another extremely memorable option, and the Creation Club content, much of which was later bundled into Anniversary Edition, expanded the selection even further. While there are many more options available nowadays, the overall best horse is completely subjective and dependent more on your playstyle and game mode. The Dragonborn isn't simply receiving a powerful horse from Astrid, they're receiving something that once belonged to one of the Brotherhood's most important historical figures. Something that existed during an entirely different era. Shadowmere becomes a physical connection between the Dark Brotherhood of Oblivion and the Dark Brotherhood of Skyrim. From purely a gameplay perspective, Shadowmere is easy to understand. You complete a part of the Dark Brotherhood questline. You get a cool horse. The horse has great health, the horse regenerates quickly, the horse fights enemies, and if the horse dies, he can eventually return. Simple. But from a lore perspective, why does Shadowmere live for centuries? Why does Shadowmere emerge from that pool? How did Shadowmere end up with Astrid? Why does Lucian still recognize Shadowmere? And what exactly allows Shadowmere to return after death? Those questions are never completely answered. So the next time Shadowmere emerges from the black pool outside of the Falkreath sanctuary, just remember that you're not looking at another horse. You're looking at something that has survived centuries of Tamriel's history, outlived generations of assassins, and somehow found its way back to the Dark Brotherhood. And until the Elder Scrolls finally gives us a better explanation, the question remains, what exactly is Shadowmere? If you have any theories, be sure to put them down in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe before taking Shadowmere on your next quest in Skyrim.